evening and welcome. My hashtag tonight, Dragon Without Fire, has no element of sarcasm or triumphalism over the slow but observed retreat of the Chinese forces along the line of actual control. China has in the last 48 hours pulled back from the ridge area of Finger 4 above Pangong. Gogra and Hot Springs, in both areas, a retreat is observed. But while the elephant stomps over the dragon's tail, it is the eagle that has started circling over the injured and squealing dragon. American strike corps have entered and are dominating the South China Sea. Multiple American aircraft carriers, destroyers and cruisers are in a nose-to-nose combat challenge. They are ready for anti-submarine warfare and maritime strikes, and China, the same China that is the Vadra family's last hope, the same China with whom Antonia Maino signed a secret deal, the same China is desperately pleading and begging for American withdrawal. Their much-hyped military prowess has gone for a toss. India is ready to hit them with stated intent, and America is showing them their place. The dragon without fire looks pitiful tonight. The dragon without fire looks weak tonight. The dragon without fire is looking pathetic tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and that's debate number one. The dragon without fire doesn't know what it needs to do now. Jinping has never looked more confused and vulnerable. Debate number two. How did a mafia don get created by the political class of Uttar Pradesh? And debate number three tonight. The scandal over gold in Kerala that threatens the Pinarayi Vijayan government. All this and more is coming up, and here are the headlines this Tuesday evening on the debate tonight. India will not let its guard down. Chinook Apaches and Globe Masters are guarding the skies at the line of actual control. Exclusive report on Republic. And America's aggressive dual carrier operations in South China Sea start making Jinping very nervous. Trump plans a Modi-like digital strike, gets ready to ban Chinese social media apps. 116 hours and counting, multi-state manhunt continues for gangster and cop killer Vikas Dubey. Mafia Don's deep political links come under the scanner as the investigation throws up startling new details. And a massive gold smuggling scandal has reached the doorstep of the Chief Minister of Kerala. Even the UAE has launched an investigation. And ladies and gentlemen, with their unmatched sea power, the American Navy's USS Nimitz and USS Ronald Reagan are conducting spectacular military drills in the South China Sea with a firm promise of safeguarding the Indo-Pacific. The effect was visible in Beijing. Their supremacist claims over the South China Sea have suddenly been tamed, and it marks a significant shift in global policy towards China.
The Apaches are maintaining a round-the-clock vigil in Ladakh.
The night operations have an inherent element of surprise. The Indian Air Force is fully trained and ready to undertake entire spectrum of operations in any environment with the help of modern platforms and motivated personnel.
Transport aircraft, C-17 Globemaster and C-130J Super Hercules are ready to take off. Sukhoi 30 MKI and MiG-29 fighter jets are roaring the skies. And Ladakh scouts are battling tough terrains to protect India's territorial sovereignty.
वो जो टीम आप देख रहे हैं ऊपर जो पहाड़ों पर हमारे लद्दाख स्काउट्स के जवान दौड़ रहे हैं, दरअसल वो जो है वो असॉल्ट टीम है, यानी कि वो टीम जो सीधे दुश्मन के बंकर को ध्वस्त कर देगी। कि उसी की जो एक ड्रिल है वो हम आपको दिखा रहे हैं। देखिए किस तरीके से जो असॉल्ट टीम है, कैसे वो बंकर है जिसको माना जा रहा है कि वो दुश्मन का बंकर है और वहां पर वो कैसे फायरिंग कर रहे हैं।
China has been pushed back at the line of actual control, but our forces won't let their guard down. With constant patrolling and operations, our battle-ready troops are keeping a firm eye on each and every Chinese move.
Reflecting the understanding in the de-escalation talks between NSA Ajit Doval and Chinese FM Wang Ji, some pullback has been reported from contested areas in the LAC along the Ladakh sector. For example, we have come to know that some structures have been dismantled in Galwan. Thinning of troops has been reported from Gogra and Hot Springs, and a ridge seems to have been vacated in the Finger Four area.
So while in the Himalayas, Indian Army and Air Force are forcing Chinese troops to move back, in the South China Sea, the US Navy's Nimitz and Ronald Reagan strike groups are showing off their prowess. USS Nimitz, one of the world's largest warships, and USS Ronald Reagan, first nuclear-powered warship, have carried out operations in the contentious South China Sea in support of a free and open Indo-Pacific. Beijing has felt the tremors.
中国和东盟国家的共同努力下，南海局势保持总体稳定，向好发展。
Not just India and the United States of America. Global powers are exposing and cornering China militarily, diplomatically, and economically. The United Kingdom too has sounded a warning against Chinese telecom giant as it begins to ramp up its building of 5G network.
The UK should not be in any way vulnerable to high-risk state vendors.
As expansionist China eyes to spread its tentacles in the neighborhood, India is leading the world in setting an example and making sure China's efforts bite the dust.
और साथियों ये न भूले, इतिहास गवाह है कि ऐसी ताकतें मिट गई हैं या मुड़ने के लिए मजबूर हो गई है.
With national security becoming the foremost priority, world leaders are uniting to bring the dragon down to its knees. The global policy vis-à-vis China is changing dramatically. Let's debate.
Smita Prakash, General Gurmeet Singh and Tenzin Sundu. Representing the Chinese view, Andrew K.P. Leung. From Hong Kong, Adam Ni is the director of the China Policy Center in Leipzig in Germany. He's going to be joining us. Kent Calder is the director of the Center for East Asian Studies at Johns Hopkins University in Washington. Dr. Arthur Dong is professor of the McDonough School of Business at Georgetown University in Washington. And Donald Camp will be joining us. He's a former senior director of the National Security Council in the US. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'd like to start by asking you, Andrew, what an unnecessary situation for China to be in. What a pitiful and pathetic situation for China to be in. But all of this truly was not necessary. The humiliation that you are going through now, having been forced to retreat in Ladakh and begging to America, would not have been necessary if you had stayed in your place. Now, look at your situation. Whatever your government's media may be telling you, because you don't have a free media, but the fact is that you have pulled back along the line of actual control with India, and America is plowing through the South China Sea, which you claim is yours. Plowing through it. Just plowing through it. And China is being made to look like a weak country unable to match its words with action. Why did you put yourself in this situation? As in, Andrew, why did China put itself in this situation? I'd like you to come into the debate with Kent Calder to start with. Andrew.
Yeah. if you allow me. First of all, I do not agree that China is appearing weak. Only a couple of days ago, I was on this program, and you were accusing China of being aggressive. And then, of course, painting China as into a kind of threat. There is, in fact, a global campaign to create a kind of China scare, demonizing China on all fronts. But of course, this is not totally unexpected, because China is now become much larger and is seen to be threatening a global liberal order led by the United States. And because its trade has a lot of interaction with other countries, and of course its determination to defend its own national sovereignty, that of course comes into conflict with the United States, which of course sees that the South China Sea and the Pacific as a sphere of influence as well. So I think that this confrontation on all fronts is not totally unexpected. But I think that this does not mean that China is now
that's your view. You see, what happens is
surrendering. As you're trying to paint China into
Andrew,
that kind of
let me get Kent
picture.
to respond to you. Kent.
Well, first of all, you talk about defense of sovereignty. China has certainly shown a rather expansive view of sovereignty. Of course, the line of control, the issues between India and China, also the South China Sea. I see this really as a matter of China having a very expansive sense of its security and trying to take advantage of the recent developments relating to COVID. China's been relatively quick out of the crisis, at least in the first wave. Other countries, of course, are headed into that. China is capitalizing on this situation to press some territorial goals that are highly questioned and certainly not recognized by the United States.
Just to bring Dr. Yes, Kent, I agree with you. Just to bring Dr. Arthur Dong also into the debate. Dr. Arthur Dong, we heard the pro-China view of Andrew K.P. Leung. Now, I find the present situation in the South China Sea the biggest challenge for China, because China has claimed complete control over these waters. Now, Andrew, if you have claim over the waters, what is the point of claiming the South China Sea as your own? Even Papua New Guinea or the Maldives can claim the South China Sea as their own. You don't have the capacity to back it up. You don't have the war-fighting capability. You do not have the ability to take on a nose-to-nose combat challenge. The US carrier Ronald Reagan, you have had Nimitz, are all flying all over the region, and all you are doing is pleading to America to please take their aircraft carriers back. You know how bad that looks, Andrew. You're being stared down, and you're not being able to respond, Andrew. I'm sure you'll agree that is the weakest any country can get, Andrew.
Well, can I comment?
Yes, please.
Well, as far as the South China Sea is concerned, I don't think that China is denying access to other countries. Bearing in mind that the South China Sea is not just about territorial disputes for China. It's the sea line of communications for very important conduit of China's economic lifeblood.
It may be.
And of course, it's to ensure that there's a free flow of trade, free flow of importation.
But Andrew, look at the images. But Andrew, sorry to intervene. I'd like Dr.
And free
I'd like Dr. Arthur Dong to come in, and the point is that all I'm seeing, Dr. Dong, is images of the formations of the aircraft from the carrier air wing in a formation of the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Force. They are conducting what is called dual operations over the South China Sea. This is a direct challenge to China's occupational ambitions, isn't it?
Yes, Arnab. If I may interject here, and certainly to respond to Andrew's comments, the U.S. view is animated by several things. The U.S. view, the United States' view, is animated by the fact that it's well understood that territorial waters internationally are governed by international law, and they extend only a few hundred miles from the seashore of any sovereign nation. Now, this dispute was brought up before the international tribunal, and the international tribunal, in a sense, dismissed China's claims, greater claims to the South China Sea. Now, what has the United States incredibly concerned is the growing territorial ambitions of China within these territorial waters. Now, the United States Navy, being the most powerful in the world, has always stated that its number one objective is freedom of the seas and access to all to the world's commons. Now, what is increasingly being viewed within the confines of Washington, D.C., is that U.S. major allies such as Japan, South Korea, Philippines, and now even Vietnam and Malaysia, their interests are being, in a sense, violated as a result of China's growing assertiveness, as well as its growing presence within the South China Sea, and not to mention its island-building campaigns in the Spratly Islands. This has the United States extremely concerned. And of course, this is not something that happened overnight. This is decades in the making. And I think the United States is trying to send a very clear signal that it's going to draw a line in the sand.
Yeah, see, you may be in denial, Andrew, but I think you've been exposed. I think if you don't mind my being completely frank with you, Andrew, you're looking very flustered. You as in China, General Gurmeet, they're fumbling, because this whole perception, General Gurmeet, a perception of Chinese sovereignty over the South China Sea. Where is Jinping today? What can Jinping do? He's got a hammer blow. He's got a hammer blow in Ladakh. He's got a hammer blow in the South China Sea. And even the captain of the Destroyer Squadron 9 of the American Strike Corps is saying, listen, I'm here for a long-range maritime strike and anti-submarine warfare. You have a captain in the US Navy declaring his intent to you. Where is the Chinese military clout? Where is your Navy? Andrew, where is the Chinese Navy? Where is it?
Let me respond immediately.
No. Please respond. But come back to. See, you're looking nervous.
Sir, let me come in immediately.
No, we have a very senior Indian Army officer who wants to respond to you. General Gurmeet Singh has been General Officer Commanding of the 15 Corps. Very, very respected strategic voice in India. It'll be interesting to hear his view as well. General Gurmeet, what is going on here?
Arnab, very respectfully to Mr. Andrew, I would like to bring out, he must have heard our Prime Minister on 3rd July when he visited Leh, that is in Ladakh, and he categorically talked about expansionism. Without naming China, it is very clear that it has been told that Chinese have been on an aggressive, provocative, and on diversionary aspect. We have seen from the end of April that Chinese were aggressive, they were provocative, and what they have done in this area. In fact, I would like to say that what the Prime Minister has talked about expansionism, US is what they call you revisionist. And what we have witnessed in the eastern Ladakh is you're aggressive, you're provocative. And on 15th of June, when there was a violent face-off in the area known as Galwan, which you'll never forget hereafter for next 100 years, that day, three things happened. One, that Indian Army gave a very clear projection of what Indian Army is all about, their mountain warfare, their high altitude warfare, and combat experience. Other side, they laid bare the lie and the propaganda of the PLA. Third, the trust of China and PLA was totally shattered because all treaties, protocol, and practices were absolutely violated.
Actually, East Ladakh is not an isolated or a local incident. In fact, the same the content has been seen in all the areas where you have created a front. In fact, one doesn't understand why have you opened all fronts. I have visited China 7 times. I have visited Taiwan also once. And let me tell you, I was very impressed with transformation and economy, the way China was coming up. And to be honest, you are a big civilization. But why are you on this aggressive aspect? Even, I'm sorry to say, your diplomats have also turned as a ball warrior. What has happened to you?
Yeah, why have you...
December 2019, why are you on the path of lies? Why on the path of not sharing the input with the world? My honest request to you is you will have to introspect because you have open front with everybody. How is it possible that you are the common factor? US has come out with 15 plan, and in that 15 plan, all the areas, aggression, provocation, and the fingers are pointing towards you.
Yeah, you know, Andrew, as I open up the debate, also joined here by Adam Nee. And I'd like Adam to come into the debate with Smita Prakash, Editor-in-Chief of ANI. Adam Nee is Director of the China Policy Center. He's joining us from Leipzig in Germany. Adam, you know, the present situation we are here to discuss is one, of course, the fact that thankfully the Chinese have started retreating from the line of actual control. They've gone back to their positions. But what is making you look terrible is that American warships are all over the South China Sea, and you said that this is your territory. As in China said that it's Chinese territory. Where is the Chinese military? Where is their navy? Where is the Chinese capability? They're just not being able to respond. And the general view is that you've opened up too many fronts and China is a mess right now. What can China do in your view to counter the American warships which are all over the South China Sea? A. B. We've pushed you back from Ladakh. India has pushed you back from Ladakh. What's happening? I mean, will China just sit and watch itself get crushed?
Yeah, hold on. Just before you go on, so I just want to make it clear that I don't, you know, I'm not putting my views forward as a Chinese view. I'm only putting my forward as a view of somebody who's looking at Chinese foreign policy and security issues. I think certainly there's an aspect of overreach. On the sea, China has been quite ambitious in all different fields, from territorial disputes to technological expansion, and in the realm of rhetoric as well. So certainly there's an element of overreach. But as your hashtag indicate, dragon will have fight, I think we should be very thankful that China is not more assertive or aggressive as it has hitherto been, right, in the South China Sea. I think the least thing that regional countries want to see is a clash between the United States and China. At this stage, I think the best thing for both countries to do is to calm down and to de-escalate. I mean, this applies both to India and China, but as well as in South China Sea.
I take your view, but you know, again, if you look at this purely in terms of military might, before I come to Smita, let me get Donald Camp in. Please don't mind my saying this, but Adam and Andrew, you all know that you can't match the American forces. I mean, you know, the Chinese Navy, Navy cannot match India's, leave alone America's. Their aircraft carriers are about 100% heavier, 100% longer, outsizing every known Chinese naval ship. The Chinese are spooked today. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? You didn't expect this.
Well, can I come in?
Andrew, you can come in. I know. Okay, so Andrew and Adam are on one side of this interesting debate, and after that, I'd like Donald also to come in, please. You know, yes. Donald and Arthur Dong will be on the other side, and Kent Candler will be on the other side. Yes, Andrew, you want to respond? Is it? Go on, respond, and then Donald will respond to you. I repeat. I just want to say that your aircraft carriers are no match for the Americans, which are 100% heavier, longer, and outsize you in every way. Yeah, I repeat that.
Well, I think you've forgotten to mention. I mean, there's a background. before the arrival of the American aircraft carrier groups, there was already a Chinese kind of military exercise, naval exercise, more or less at the same time in the South China Sea. Now, of course, that this is not China's intention to stir up trouble.
You have
but I think that
trouble.
this indicates that the South China Sea
it's too late
is
to
a
say
heavily contested territory. And of course, there are other claimants of all some of these islands as well.
you
mentioned the Southeast Asian nations. I think most of them do not want, China included, do not want a war in the South China Sea. Nor does America want a war, or for that matter, India. Because it's in no one's interest.
But nobody wants war. Nobody wants war. Nobody wants war. Nobody wants war. No, one second.
Look at
Smita wants to. Okay. See, nobody wants war. Smita wants to respond. But I will still say, as I hand over to Smita, that you have been swatted back to reality. What Adam calls overreach has been a pathetic miscalculation by China.
Yeah.
Smita.
I think overreach was a very polite term. It is hegemonistic, and to think that the other countries in Asia are okay with it, no, they're not. Many of the countries are now looking at decoupling from China. Not just decoupling economically, they are looking at it strategically, at diplomatically. It's not going to be easy, but they are looking at it as a possibility. Nobody likes the way China is moving like an expansionist power, swallowing up, gobbling up nations as they come. You just mentioned, Andrew, that it is important. The sea is important for us. Just because something is important, you don't go and grab it. That is what Xi Jinping is doing, unfortunately. The Americans are there. I think one of the panelists mentioned that the American USS Nimitz and USS Ronald Reagan, they are there essentially for their strategic allies. But the fact is that it's not just that. It gives us in India a sense of relief, a sense of knowing that there are powers in this world who will stand by those who are right, who are on the right path. Just the US Air Force said about the presence of those ships that there is strategic predictability but operational unpredictability about the fleet which is out there. And I think China better view that carefully, because in the 21st century, they are behaving like some imperialistic power and preparing for war on several fronts. They better watch out, because it's not going to happen. And Axis will get together even if it takes time. Ideologically, the countries might be separate, whether Russia, Israel, US, Australia, Japan, they all might be separate, but they are today one in wanting to stop China from trampling all over Asia.
No, you have taken 68 posts in the South China Sea. Now you're a no match for the challenge you're facing. I'd like Donald Camp to come in. Donald, we often have been seeing the comments of the Global Times, and these have been the Global Times comments have been seen to be quote unquote the views of the Chinese government. Some of the recent comments in the Global Times, in my view, Donald, lack dignity. No dignified nation says, we have missiles, we have tanks, we can hurt you, we have nuclear weapons, we have fighter jets. I mean, in today's day and age where diplomacy and statecraft has an element of subtlety, why has China been sounding like this? We have a wide selection of anti-aircraft carrier weapons, it says. We have the DF-21D. We have the DF-26 aircraft carrier killer missiles. And there was a reality check when the US Navy Chief of Information sent back a tweet saying, and yet they are, and declared that USS Nimitz and USS Ronald Reagan are not intimidated, #at our discretion. So somewhere, I think the conversation needs to go to, why did China overreach in this manner?
Well, I would simply say that, this is being approached as a military operation, and of course it is. But it's more than that. It's primarily, I think, to send a diplomatic message to America's friends and America's allies in Asia. The United States has always seen itself as a Pacific power, and it still is a Pacific power. And in the face of recent Chinese expansionist moves, and I would point to everything from Ladakh to Bhutan to Hong Kong and what's happening in Hong Kong these days, and of course the continued dispute over the islands of the South China Sea. So all of this is a response from the United States to say, we're here and we're going to be here for our friends and for ourselves. And I think that's an important message, and I believe it's being heard. And that's why you're getting some of this strong rhetoric from Chinese government and from its propaganda organs like the Global Times.
Yeah, I also, I got an interesting response from Adam. Adam and Andrew, please, may I please say this to you? Please do not think we are looking at this only from an Indian perspective. Yes, of course, Republic is India's leading channel and we are asking you questions from an Indian perspective, but I'm also asking you questions from a global perspective. And from that view, we've been trying to understand the Chinese, what I must say, Adam very honestly described as an overreach. Andrew and Adam, here's a question for you. China has been attempting to go for a face-saving gesture after this series of embarrassments in the South China Sea by trying for an Alice in Wonderland half-baked plan to construct the Kra Canal that would give you access to India's Andaman Sea. This plan aims to do so by cutting Thailand into half. Now, it is indicative, in my view, of your worry that India is working with Indonesia on the construction of the Sabang port on northern Sumatra. This is also, in my view, telling of your worry that India now has docking facilities at the Changi port in Singapore that could block your Navy's access through the Malacca Straits. And it is also telling of your worry that since last year, and everyone saw it, Singaporean armed forces have been allowed to use India's DRDO's missile testing facility in our eastern state of Orissa, which your intelligence agencies spy on from the Great Caucasus Islands of the Burmese coast. So I'm saying to you that, you see, please don't mind my saying it, but we in India believe that you are not understanding how worlds communicate. You are not understanding how the strategic depth of a country like India and the participation in East Asia that India has. And your response is this absurd and impractical plan to cut Thailand into half. You see, are you out of your depth here? Adam, I'd like you to respond to this. Adam and Andrew, we in India begin to believe, and this, what I've just told you is the view of some very respected Indian geopolitical experts.
Yeah, you talk about...
We believe that, if you just take the example I spoke about, Adam, come on.
Yes,
it's Alice in Wonderland gone terribly wrong. What's happening to you? As in, what's happening to China?
Beyond, I think beyond the individual projects, the specific cases that you presented, I think repeatedly we talk about decoupling from China, we talk about coalition being formed, counterbalance China. I think a lot of that is happening. A lot of that is happening. Countries are increasingly getting together militarily in terms of cooperations in all kinds of different fields in order to improve their own security. And also countries are more skeptical about interconnecting with China in economic realm as well. So on one side, that kind of playing out, around Australia, Indonesia, and of course India. But on the other hand, there is still there's still really important interconnections between all these countries to China. China is still very much involved in the economy.
Adam, can I ask you for a simple reply to your question? See, simple reply.
Yes.
Do you agree that this view which I presented, which by the way is the view of India's topmost geopolitical experts, shows that in your desperation to counter India, you are becoming impractical?
Well, I think you think you seem to think India has a high priority. The reality is that this might be down to some disrespectful, but from my interaction with policymakers in Beijing, India is not the first priority of the PRC. Rather, it's the United States, it's its region, its domestic control.
Right now, I'm sorry, I don't want to be disrespectful either, Adam. Truly. But you are fighting over a wildlife sanctuary the size of a football field in Bhutan. What are you talking about? You are fighting with every known country in the world. I mean, what is your priority? That's what I'm trying to fathom. See, I don't have time to waste on China, but the point is, your government is saying we have cheap missiles.
It's not my.
No. Okay, fine. So your Chinese government's mouthpiece editor overzealously says, Andrew, I have cheap missiles. Who talks like that? And this is the Chinese government mouthpiece, Global Times. We have cheap missiles. Who says that?
Well, can I comment on this?
No, please.
Focusing on one single minor aspect, in the overall picture, you quite rightly highlighted. I think that China is the world's perhaps strongest supporter of the international trade. And China trades with more countries around the world than any other country.
But you have to be. But Andrew, you keep talking about that. But may I ask you? May I ask? No, one minute. Now we disagree on this, right? No, we disagree. I get Kent. I'll get Kent and Andrew. No, one second. No, 1 second. This is on Indian networks. We allow a debate. 1 second, Andrew. Listen to me, Andrew. I'll get Arthur Dong and Kent on this. You all keep saying we've got economic ties, we are the economic power, we have this, we have cheap missiles. But listen, ask Kent here today, ask Arthur, because you will think I as an Indian don't like China. Let me tell you from the bottom of my heart, I don't like China. But that doesn't affect my objective analysis of the situation. But I still want to tell you this. You don't ask me today. Ask Kent and ask Arthur. Your defense budget is 1/4 that of the United States. Your aircraft carriers, for every one aircraft carrier you have, America has 11. Get real, Andrew.
Can I come in on this?
No, yes, you can, but I'd like to hear. Why don't you hear Arthur Dong?
Yes, Arnab, if I may. I think the contest between the United States and China and how it's shaping up in the South China Seas really comes down to this. I think it would be a little bit misguided to think that China does not have naval capability. Certainly in the past 15 years, they've spent aggressively in building a blue water navy. At this point, the game is going to come down to this. China knows that qualitatively, they are not superior to the U.S. Navy. So in order to go around that, they are confronting the United States with numerical superiority. So China has built more ships, a larger number of ships, and with this sort of strategy, trying to find a way to surround U.S. fleets and carrier strike groups because they know that qualitatively the United States Navy is still several generations ahead. Now, in terms of the Chinese carrier, military intelligence suggests that this is, again, a used Ukrainian ship that has been refurbished of sorts. And then China's been having a heck of a time learning how to conduct carrier landings. And so there is a qualitative difference here in terms of technological ability of the U.S. Navy, but China is going to sort of find a way to overcome this. And it is well recognized that China has very, very good missile technology. And this is one of the things that keeps the admirals up at night, is that China's missile capability can be a game changer for the Chinese Navy. And so this is a very delicate balancing act and a game that's becoming increasingly dangerous. If there's an accidental firing, then we're talking about a different game altogether.
Yeah, but are you ready for it, Andrew? Is China ready for it? I know that you have boats.
Well, can I?
You see, you don't have ships. Allow me to just one line. You have a lot of boats. You have what you have are boats. You have 700 boats. They are not ships. They are not aircraft carriers. You have boats. All your boats don't amount to much. There is a qualitative difference.
Well, let me come in on
please,
this. Well,
please.
Don't try
How
to
far will you
interrupt me
get
too
with
much.
your boats?
I think modern warfare is not fought in the same way as, for example, the Napoleonic Wars, depending on numbers facing on both sides. As my American colleague was pointing out, it's asymmetric warfare. And then, of course, the missile technology is not just missile per se. It's called A2AD, anti-access area denial, and using so-called missile guided new aircraft carrier missile killers. So I think that this is a very, very dangerous kind of situation, as I pointed out. And as for the Kra Canal in Thailand, again, China's now being feel that it's being pushed into a corner because they seem to be surrounded by the so-called first island chain, second island chain.
Why don't you see?
And now the
Andrew,
of the South China Sea, as I was pointed out.
Andrew, why do you? No, Andrew.
And then the Kra Canal is intended to create a kind of passage away from the choke points in the Malacca Strait. And of course, even the One Belt, One Road, the Belt and Road, is to divert the kind of import of raw material rather than complete reliance on the sea passage.
Okay. So listen, Andrew. Then Andrew
and Central Asia.
No, Andrew.
So that's part of the
no, Andrew. Andrew, listen. Let me get Kent also on a Kent. Okay, so let's look at it realistically, right? You say you are very strong. You can fight a battle, etc. Why aren't you doing it? I mean, I want Kent and Tenzin Sudo to come in. Japan blocked your vessels. Your Coast Guard ships were told by Japan, get out. You could not do anything. You looked isolated. Philippines gave you a warning. You say we are this crazily strong nation, Andrew. Philippines warned you. You then went crying to Indonesia. You said we want talks. And then Indonesia said we don't want to talk to you. Then you went to Vietnam. Then you went to Vietnam, and this is no, 1 second, please. Then you went to Vietnam, and at the 36th ASEAN summit, don't force me to tell you how the Vietnamese Prime Minister snubbed you. And then you tried to bully Australia. And when you tried to bully Australia, Australia's frigate joined the military warships from the US in the South China Sea. And then you went to Ladakh. And then you went to Ladakh. And while Ladakh is on, then you tell Bhutan, hey, listen, that sanctuary is ours. What is going on here? No, but yeah, this is. I'd like Kent to come in. Kent into the debate, please. Kent, Kent, tell Andrew.
You know what I think we can't forget is all the misperceptions that are being created by this COVID crisis. China certainly is overreaching. That is something that everyone has said. And why overreaching? Because it feels that the other major players are vulnerable now. And this is an opportunity to probe and to gain advantage. No one wants war in this situation, but there's huge misperceptions. I think on the Chinese side, there's an overconfidence flowing from a belief that the others are vulnerable. The Theodore Roosevelt carrier, for example, had 1,100 people, seamen infected, out of a crew of 5,000 just a couple of months ago. So COVID is creating a dynamic here, which in many ways is dangerous. No question the United States is stronger, much stronger. But China, I think, is thinking that it can take advantage of the situation and probe, and particularly to gain some credibility in relation to America's traditional allies. The allies, I think, are quite important in this. Japan, for example, has to get 85% of its oil from the Persian Gulf, and go right through the South China Sea. So they need to see American credibility in this situation.
I'd also like Tenzin Sundu to come in. He's a very well-known Tibetan writer and activist. Tenzin, beyond strategy, there's also the moral and ethical dimension which he'd like to raise. And Adam and Andrew, if you can please hear him. Yes, Tenzin.
Yeah.
Thank you. China is the most insecure country in the world. China is the most insecure country in the world. It is not only insecure, it doesn't know what it is doing today. Xi Jinping is going mad. He is picking fights with everybody. And for Xi Jinping, the biggest enemy is not American warships or fighter jets. It's not Japan, it's not Australia, it's definitely not India. For Xi Jinping, his biggest concern is his own people.
Yeah.
He knows that he is mistaken. He knows he is being criticized by his own people. And today he is scared of his own people. For the people of China, which is 1.3 billion, for them, their biggest enemy is not American warships or Japan's fighter jets. It is Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping is the biggest enemy for the Chinese people. China has been engineered into a country where 1.3 billion people have been made to think that it is patriotic to keep silence. When Xi Jinping goes out to make himself the president forever, this is how blatantly freedom, human rights have been denied to the Chinese people. But sadly, America, European countries have been purchasing cheap made in China products. Western countries are the ones who have made China into a monster that is today. Western countries. Today, the Western countries are realizing they were a mistake, that you cannot continue to milk the monster. The monster is oozing poison today. And therefore, the Western countries today, when they realize, they know the only solution is freedom. Love and freedom are the only solution in the world. And therefore, in order to bring love and freedom in China, they have to get rid of this communist
there is a
government.
There is a
in the form of Xi Jinping.
There is just one line before you come in. One line before you come in. There is two things, Andrew. Andrew, Jinping is in big trouble. There is a battle within the Communist Party of China that we are aware of.
On all fronts. First of all, is of course, India, United States, and all the allies, Western allies. So I think there's a global kind of demonization campaign against China. Maybe for good reason, because China is now, of course, is reaching out to many more countries. But I think that one important point, which is seldom touched upon by all our commentators and so on and so forth, is the fact that the Chinese government is held very in high regard by these people. Now, after this show, go back to Google. It's not my opinion.
Yeah.
I think you're familiar with this independent think tank based in Washington, D.C., called the Edelman Trust Barometer. And according to the latest Trust Barometer, China ranks top in the world, 17 ranks above the United States.
Brilliant.
In the kind
Tenzin
of
is
trust of
responding.
these people on
the debate's open.
towards this government. And that's according to Edelman, based in Washington, D.C.
Tenzin
So I
is
think that
responding.
you think that the Chinese government doesn't carry its people. You're totally mistaken.
Sure. Kent is having a good laugh. Tenzin is furious. Smita wants to respond. Listen, after this debate is over, Andrew, and thank God you're in Hong Kong, you can still get Google. In few years, you may not be able to Google things anymore. But I'll tell you, as of today, why don't you go on Google and check? No, 1 second. European Union hates you. Okay, now I'm not going to be subtle anymore. The EU hates you. They have put out a resolution with 27 countries condemning you for Hong Kong. Africa is furious for you. All the African ambassadors say the Chinese have been racist with us. Myanmar hates you. They said you sent terrorists there. Okay? Australia has warned you against arbitrary detention of foreign nationals. Right? Everywhere in the world, Huawei has been banned. And I want to ask you, go out on any street in Beijing and ask people whether they agree with the concentration camp situations of Uyghur Muslims in the Xinjiang province. You say trust? Nobody trusts you. You're not envy. There's a difference between envy and hate. Your economy shrunk by 7%.
Who can conduct a poll in China?
We just checked
which organization?
Smita is on the debate. Smita.
Which was out only
Everyone's on. Yes, Smita.
About 2 or 3 months ago.
Which organization? I like the cheek to say that consult Google. I mean, when it's banned in China, you can actually talk about Google. You actually say that India is not really priority. America is. If you don't have India as priority, you have 3 divisions in Ladakh. Why do you have that? Obviously, India is priority. Every country is priority because you covet land from every country. You're fighting with Canada, for heaven's sake. Who fights with Canada? But this is what it is. But the gentleman, Arnab, to come back to what you said, the gentleman out there from Tibet, who was talking about the Western nations, which promoted and which turned a blind eye to all that China did. The fact is that the US has said that every country in China's periphery is in danger of China. But it's not. It's not just every country in China's periphery. It's a global problem now. Just like COVID is a global pandemic, this is a global problem because of OBOR, because of that One Belt, One Road initiative and the CBEC. So the US has to step up. Now, whether it will step up or not, they are going into an election mode. As far as the PRC is concerned, they have this little window to course correct. President Xi seems to be on a war path with every nation that he can pinpoint. He probably wears a blindfold and just pins and says,
Arthur wants to add. Arthur wants to add a bit.
It's this whole thing of Asian century, that bubble is gone.
No. It's each country for its own. Arthur wants to add a bit. Yes, Arthur from Washington. Yes, Arthur.
Yes, Arnab, I'd like to add just one more thing to this commentary about about this whole question of how wonderful Chinese citizens think about living in China. One of the great ironies of this statement is that if you look at what's happening in China, any family who becomes either successful or rich, what's the first thing they're going to think about? How do I get out of China? Where am I going to send my children to get them out of this country?
China.
Exactly. So when you look around, whether it's London, Sydney, Vancouver, New York, LA, huge numbers of Chinese emigres, and most of them are the members of families, of elite families, who have both the resources and the money to get themselves out of China. So I just want to make the point that I don't think this view is quite a universal view, and that many people think otherwise with regard to how wonderful it is to live in China.
I think every country has a right to have aspirations for greatness, but China must understand. You see, you lost when Huawei was stopped. Your manufacturing industry will be in trouble. The trade war will cost you. The export market is closing doors. The whole world is coming together. Not without a reason. I thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That's been most interesting. On the other side tonight, at 10:30 p.m., I'll take a deep look at the Kerala gold scandal. And on the other side, how did the gangster become so important because of political patronage in Uttar Pradesh? In a few minutes.